The roar of the crane was the first thing I heard. It wasn't a distant hum. It was a guttural metallic shriek that vibrated through the very foundation of my truck. My heart, a panicked drum solo against my ribs, told me something was terribly wrong. I slammed on the brakes, dust kicking up in a thick, choking cloud, and my vision cleared just enough to see it. It was my home, or what was left of it. The porch swing I'd built for Sarah was a pile of kindling. The front door, the very one I'd painted a bright, hopeful blue, lay ripped from its hinges, its glass I shattered. A tremor of absolute, paralyzing disbelief seized me. My breath hitched in my throat. This couldn't be real. "What have you done?" I shouted, my voice a cracked whisper that barely cut through the cacophony. A woman in a pressed beige suit, her face a mask of condescending satisfaction, stepped forward from the small crowd of onlookers. It was Elaine, head of the HOA, a woman who weaponized passive aggression and rulebooks. She looked at me with the same cold indifference a predator reserves for its prey. "Oh, hello, Mr. Henderson. We're simply carrying out the official ruling. Your property was in violation of several architectural covenants. The notice was sent." A notice? Was she serious? I hadn't received a thing. My mind reeled. The sickening crunch of wood gave way to the terrifying sound of the crane's jaws biting into the main frame. It sounded like the house was screaming. I lunged forward, but a man in a hard hat stopped me. "Sir, it's not safe. Stay back." I could see the glint of steel in Elaine's eyes. She knew. She had to. The notice had been sent to an old address, a trick from a playbook a seasoned Karen would surely know by heart. The HOA had a new member on its committee, a retired lawyer from the city who had a reputation for getting things done by the book, but with a vindictive streak a mile wide. His name was Gerald, and he and Elaine had orchestrated this. The sheer injustice of it was a physical weight on my chest. They took my home, the place where Sarah and I were supposed to start a family, based on a technicality. My hands balled into fists, trembling with a fury so hot it felt like my blood was boiling. I watched as the crane tore through the master bedroom, the one we just finished painting a soft, calming green. A single, choked sob escaped my lips. I couldn't stop them. Not here. Not now. But as the crane's engine roared one last time, an icy calm settled over me. They'd taken my home. Now I'd take their kingdom. My revenge was methodical, almost poetic. Elaine and her husband, Marcus, owned the massive Double L Ranch, a sprawling 1,200-acre estate that was the pride of the valley, famous for its prize-winning sheep. And their entire operation, from the vast pastures to the shearing barn, depended on a single aging well and a series of irrigation pipes that ran across my property line. My property line. A wry, bitter smile touched my lips. They'd torn down my house, but in their haste, they'd missed a crucial detail. Just a few feet from what was once my garden, an old, rusted valve was partially hidden by overgrown weeds. It was the master valve, the one that controlled the main flow of water to their entire ranch. Late that night, under a cold, indifferent moon, I went back. The air was heavy with the smell of fresh-cut lumber and shattered dreams. I found the valve, a relic from the original property owner, and with a wrench I'd brought from my truck, I worked at it. The groan of the metal was a satisfying sound, a low, grinding protest that felt like justice being served. With a final, sharp click, the valve turned. The flow of water, a steady pulse of life to the Double L Ranch, stopped. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the new, profound silence. It wasn't the deafening silence of the demolition. It was the quiet, confident silence of a trap being set. A quiet, satisfying triumph. The next morning, the confrontation I'd anticipated was swift and furious. I was sitting on a dusty pile of rubble, drinking coffee from a thermos, when Elaine's pristine white SUV came screeching to a halt, kicking up more dust. Marcus, her husband, a towering man with a perpetually flushed face, stormed out, his face a mask of incredulous rage. "What in the goddamn hell, Henderson? The troughs are dry. The sheep are bawling. Did you mess with the line?" Elaine stepped out, her tailored blazer a stark contrast to the destruction behind me. "Mr. Henderson, This is a very serious matter. We can't have you tampering with essential utilities. Oh, it's a serious matter now? I shot back, my voice low and steady. I let my eyes sweep over the flattened landscape of my life. You know, I thought it was a serious matter when you tore down my house without so much as a proper warning. The one I worked my entire life for. My words were like stones hitting glass. Marcus looked genuinely surprised, a flicker of something almost like guilt in his eyes. But Elaine, her face remained hard, unyielding. You were in violation, she repeated, her voice a clipped, high-pitched monotone. The notice was sent. You should have checked your mail more carefully. I let out a harsh, bitter laugh. A notice you sent to an address you knew I didn't live at anymore? How convenient. How very HOA of you. I stood up slowly, deliberately, dusting off my jeans. You see, Elaine, I've had a change of heart. My property, my rules. And right now, my rule is that your water just isn't. The line crosses my land. It's my land. And you've made a very dramatic statement about property rights, haven't you? For the first time, a flicker of genuine fear crossed her face. The bravado evaporated, replaced by a desperate, panicked look. You can't be serious. You jeopardize a whole herd over this. The sheer hypocrisy of her question was staggering. You'd destroy a man's home over a zoning technicality? I'd say we're even. Wouldn't you? My gaze held hers. Tell me, Elaine, what's a 1,200 sheep ranch worth compared to a man's home? She had no answer. The next few days were a masterclass in slow public humiliation. The constant, desperate bleating of the sheep was a mournful soundtrack for the entire valley. The ranch hands, loyal to Marcus but frustrated by Elaine's iron fist, started to grumble. Rumors flew. The local newspaper ran a story about the mysterious water outage, and soon, everyone knew. The community was divided. Some sided with the HOA, but most, knowing Elaine and her antics, saw the justice in my actions. The HOA meeting on Thursday was the final act. It wasn't about the water anymore. It was about power. And Elaine was losing hers, rapidly. She stood at the podium, her usual confident demeanor shattered. Her hands trembled as she clutched a sheaf of papers. We are working to resolve the issue with the water line. Mr. Henderson is being unreasonable. A gruff voice from the back of the room called out, Unreasonable? He's a man whose house you demolished. Elaine, what did you expect? A thank you note. The crowd murmured in agreement. Her face, a pasty, ashen gray, looked like it might crumble. She tried to stammer out an explanation, but her carefully constructed narrative of legal righteousness had fallen apart. It was a beautiful, devastating sight. The queen of the HOA, the woman who had lorded over us all, was now a hollow shell. Her sheep were thirsty, her husband was furious, and her neighbors saw her for exactly what she was. A bully who finally met a match she couldn't outmaneuver. The motion to remove her as president of the HOA passed with a landslide vote. Her reign of terror was over. Standing on the patch of earth where my house once stood, I didn't feel a triumphant thrill. I felt a quiet peace. The demolition was a tragedy, but it had also been a cleansing fire. It had burned away the false sense of security I had in a community ruled by a vengeful despot. The neighbors who had once been indifferent were now offering their support, bringing me food and helping me clear the rubble. It was a true community, forged in the ashes of conflict. My revenge hadn't been about retribution. It had been about reclaiming my dignity. And in doing so, I had liberated an entire town from a tyrant. A new beginning was here. The old pipes were gone. The new ones would be laid by the community, for the community, a shared resource for everyone. Perhaps, I thought, that's what true power isn't, the power to destroy, but the power to build, to rebuild, and to inspire. What do you think? Was my act of cutting off the water a justifiable response? Or did I go too far?